Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a great show ahead today, folks. Here's the deal. We are well overdue to have both these investigators on this program. There is a new season of Travel the Dead out there. And if you say you've never seen the program, I'm going to call you a goddamn liar. That's what I'm going to call you, because there's a lot of people watching this show on YouTube with our guest today. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear there, but I had to, because this show is that great. My guests today are Heather, Taddy, and Katrina Weidman. I know you know them from other programs. I don't have to name the other programs, but both of them started out on Paranormal Stage with PRS, and they've just flourished and blossomed from there. Both of them studied under the amazing Lorraine Warren and have gone from there, and their investigative techniques are thorough. They're amazing. They are cutting edge, and I sit and marvel at them and in wonder as I sit and watch each individual episode as they come up with things that I would have never thought of. I got to be honest with you, although I got to admit, you know, with the bum leg, I don't get out as often as I'd like to investigating, but I sit and I say to myself, are there places and things where they won't go? And maybe that's one of the questions I need to ask them today, because even through Travel the Dead, which I think we're getting to know them better through the program, they seem to be able to overcome different fears and things that they're admitting on camera to you. And they do it episode after episode after episode. And I wonder if they surprise themselves. But again, the YouTube channel, we have a link in the description of this program. If you haven't seen the program, and by gosh, I don't think any of you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring them in for the first time together on the program. Heather, Taddy, and Katrina Weidman. Ladies, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Hello, Heather.
Hey.
You're like, hello. Hello.
It's been so long since I've seen you, Tim.
Well, August. August, right?
Was it August? Okay. But it was very brief. We weren't in the same room together at Michigan Paracon.
What do you mean? We were on the same stage.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, my gosh. Yeah,
we were in the same room.
This is off to a great start already.
Darling, you grilled me from the moment I walked in the door about what I was going to ask you on stage, which, by the way, I love you for it. You had asked me, you are the most prepared person in the world. I got to give you that.
I am, yes.
Your preparation is second to none. No, I appreciate it, because when I interview people, I normally, if someone has a book out there, I read it from cover to cover, right? And if someone has a new season of something, I want as many screeners as possible so I can sit down and watch, from beginning to end. So I know what I'm in for and what I can ask and what I can't ask. So I appreciate your preparation. I really do. I'm right there with you. And I don't want to be caught, off guard with everything. So I wanted to throw you a screwball too while you were on stage, because that's my sense of humor. So I did. And what I don't know, Katrina, if you know this or not, but I threw 2 new categories when we got on stage to our topic, just to watch Taddy sweat.
What were the topics?
I believe, what was the topic again? Do you remember, Heather?
It was a ridiculous question. It was like something about Bigfoot?
Well, what it was the connection. The topic was the connection between ghosts, UFOs, and cryptids, right? I believe or how they all connected universally, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
But because Mike Ricksecker had a book coming out that had to do with time slips and portals, was it? Or yeah. So I decided to throw those in as well. And then I connected all kinds of different universal science in there. And yeah, I watched both Heather and Shane's eyes glaze over. So... But I knew that Mike would cover it. So, and he lit up, yeah. And he rubbed his hands, and he was all excited. And I went, oh God, they're going to kill me.
No, our Taddy's always prepared though.
Yeah. Yeah.
We call her Preparation H.
Wow.
Kidding. pretty
good one. That was a good one.
That is good. We should start calling you that.
Yeah, that's great.
That's why, because she gets inflamed like a hemorrhoid when you piss her off, or why are you calling her that?
Because she's always prepared.
Because she's prepared. Okay.
Preparation pad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Wow. Now that we've gotten off to that start.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we can't go anywhere but down from there.
Nope. But that's the way I think it was intended. Us three get together. It's just.
That's right. It's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, to the two of you, first of all, I have to salute you on the beginning of the season. I do want to ask you this. I want to ask you a little bit about After the Dead, and where the words is hard. Where the inspiration for After the Dead came from, why a post-mortem or a recap on different episodes comes from, and why a sit down, and why I don't want to. It's not a rehash, because there's a lot of interesting things from behind the scenes that both of you are coming up with and giving us new information about some of the shoot. But why the post-mortem, and why the new information on After the Dead, and what's the basis for coming up with that?
So After the Dead came about because, Heather and I have worked in television on paranormal shows for close to 20 years at this point. And I think one of the frustrations that we shared, and that I think fans share also, is with the network shows, you never get the follow-ups. You never really get to see, has anything changed? And when we worked on Paranormal State, PRS, the club, we fought this a lot, because we at the end of, I think it was the first season episodes, they would always do that little update about the family after we left. Mm-hmm. And it was always the family no longer experiences paranormal activity. And we're like, that's not true though. It was for maybe 2 or 3 families or something, but not everything was wrapped up in a nice little bow. And I think because, Heather always says it beautifully, that we're trying to put parameters on something that doesn't have parameters. Mm-hmm. So because of that, investigations are forever ongoing. I don't really think they're ever solved, because we don't know what a ghost is, essentially, or why these experiences happen, or why they only happen to certain people. And that's, taking into account that a lot of things can be misinterpreted and, explained away and all that stuff. So I think After the Dead just really became a way to kind of show that these cases are ever evolving, and that we're finding out new information all the time. And sometimes in the moment we think something is unexplainable, but we come to find out actually it wasn't. And that sometimes we think something is explainable, and then we find out actually, there's a history of this type of activity happening in this space, and we didn't know that at the time. So I just think it's important to have those conversations, because the shows have done a lot of good, but I also think there's been so much cut out that at home, you're not seeing the whole picture.
And
let me go ahead, Heather. Yeah.
Oh, to add to that too, there's always, we've had clients where after we leave, they might experience something, and just to get that follow-up, I think people really enjoy that. And there's also times where we get extra information that maybe later down the road relates to one of Michelle's readings that we kind of put together and find a pattern to. And that's, I don't know, I love the follow-ups, because I always think it's exciting, and there's always some other piece of history to uncover.
Now, I was going to come to you, Heather, with this next part, and that kind of ties into a little bit of what Katrina was talking about, and that's this. Do you feel the YouTube format, and how does the YouTube format expand the knowledge base, and can you have too much when it comes to one episode? Is it something where you can maybe get a little too expansive with just one case? And are you finding that are you cutting anything out of the initial episode to, or are you putting everything in the sauce, so to speak, when you're making an episode of Travel the Dead? Is it something where you are having to pull stuff out, or are we getting everything in one episode? How is it working when you're making these episodes?
I mean, we have limited time at each location usually, so there is stuff that gets cut out. But I actually put together videos of outtakes and things that don't make our episodes, and we post the bonus footage as well, which people like to see that. And, there's a lot of jokes and pranks we play on each other that don't always make the episodes. But as far as YouTube goes and the way we put our episodes up there, I think, at first we were doing the shorter episodes, and it seems like people are into like the longer episodes now.
That's interesting. And I'll ask, I guess I want to follow up with you on this, Heather, because we get it drilled into our head as podcasters, this, and I don't know if the two, and you two are kind of bucking the trend on this, and because the episodes are longer, especially since 42 minutes is standard TV, right? We get told as podcasters, shorter is better. It used to be that this podcast here would average somewhere in the, this 19 years now. Okay. We celebrated our 19th anniversary on January 1st. I don't say that for kudos or anything.
Congratulations.
But, well, thank you. But it used to be, we were on 3 hours a night at one point. So there's a lot of content to cover now. And we would have listeners of the show that would tell us, well, we want more. Well, how are you going to want more? That's 15 hours a week, right? When we were Monday through Friday. There's a lot of cover, a lot of ground to cover. And now we're being told shorter is better. There's podcasters out there putting out 15-minute podcasts, 5-minute podcasts. And we're being told it can't be short enough because the attention span of podcast listeners is like, I don't mean this to be derogatory, but like a gnat. It's a quick hit society. Put it out there, give them the bite-sized morsel, get out of there. What I find about the two of you is that the dynamic is so entertaining, the information is so fresh and informative, and you're always putting a new spin on things that I'm intrigued, I'm enthralled, I want to keep watching. You've got my attention. So I guess I would ask you this, Heather, are you finding that, we have this thing called retention, both in television and radio and podcasting. Are you finding that retention rate is still high, that people are still holding on, and that with that retention rate, can you continue to build the length of the episode? Or are you finding that, you have a certain retention rate that you got to stop an episode at a certain point, and then you have to continue. You have to continue after a certain point.
Well, I think when it comes to our episodes being in parts, I think we do a really good job of like ending the episode where we need to end it to make people come back to watch next week's episode. Okay. But I think the feedback we've been getting most of all is that people do like the longer episodes, and people seem to complain that they're not long enough, is what I've been hearing of people saying.
Okay.
But we are only a team of 3 people, so there's only so much we can do when we're at these locations. So if that changes in the future, we'll be able to offer longer content.
Okay. Katrina, I got to give this to you and to Heather and to Jay and production in general. For as small as your team is, it's shot beautifully. Thank you. There's a lot of production value to this show.
Yeah, that's, Jay is... Well, Jay's a producer, a director, a musician. Jay wears so many hats, and he's very, very talented. And he loves the paranormal, and he has such a good eye for being able to tell the story visually. So, I think the 3 of us coming together just really, it just works, So we're able to, what's the best way to tell the story? How do we tell the story of these places and these people? And about our journey and what this investigation was like. And Jay has just, I feel like, and Heather, I'm sure you have thoughts on this too, but just Jay being part of the team really, I think, brought so much of what we were doing to life.
Yeah, he's amazing at what he does. He's so talented. And yeah, you can even look back at how the episodes evolve each time with his talent and everything. And
I think it's like, all 3 of us have worked in entertainment for so long at this point, and different, like, we're all musicians. We all worked in TV. We all did this and that. And I think one of the really beautiful things about creator content, like a YouTube platform, is that we don't have to abide by the rules that we had to on network television. So, not every episode has to be the same length, and they don't all have to look the same. And there doesn't really have to be a format if we don't want it to. So it always goes back to, how do we tell the story the best way possible? And what does that look like visually? That's where Jay comes in, and Heather does a lot of the B-roll shooting, and she's got such a great eye for that too. She's always had a great eye for that. And she did a lot of that in Paranormal State too. So I just think, I think all of us were just looking for a way to do this work where we felt it was more representative of us and the work that we do.
So Heather, I would ask you this. I noticed this. Really, you two are the original. We'll call it what it is. Frontiers people of the ones who went out from Discovery and went out in the great wild and decided to take on YouTube and make a show, right? And then you had others fall in line, like Project Fear and others, from network TV to the internet, and come up with huge success. So I would ask you this, Heather, having had multiple shows, what's a no-no and what's standard format when you're shooting B-roll, and where you've got to put it together, where you got to put it. How many times have you told yourself, when you're going to break a rule, and you're going to break a rule, but it just looks good? How many times have you told yourself, not going to do it? Oh, I'm going to break it. And you've just gone ahead and done it anyways.
Well, that's the beauty of this project, is that we can do whatever the heck we want. And, we always say this, that like no paranormal case, there's no two cases that are ever alike. So it's really hard when you're trying to fit a certain formula for each different case into a TV episode. So that's why I think we do a really good job of, communicating certain points and just going with the flow when it comes to whatever case, whatever location we're at, and putting that together into a nicely gift-wrapped episode.
I want to jump to another cast member who has continued to shock and amaze me, and that's Michelle Belanger. If I could get each of your thoughts about her briefly, and how she's grown in her abilities, and how she's grown as simply as someone who's been with you really from the beginning, from Paranormal State, because it seems like, especially with these last 3 episodes, that, man, it just, the things she's picked up. And there was one thing I noticed, which it kind of confounded me, but at the same time, I got why there was confusion at one point. And it happened when you were at Madison Seminary. She picked up on the previous location you had been at, and it's almost like that. I'm going to use a word here you're not going to like, but it was almost like that aura or that stink from where you had been before had followed you over to the new place, but she sensed both places on you. And it's almost like she had started to read one, but picked up the new one as well. But that's just how accurate she was, that she had sensed that you had been in both places, that you were relatively close to both places, as far as geography went. And that's not a mistake. That's a gift, knowing that through time and through space, she could see where you had been in both places. So I guess, I know that's a long question, but I guess I'm going to start with you again, Heather. Tell me a little bit about how Michelle's grown with you and what exactly you think of her abilities.
I mean, there's no words to describe her ability. She's amazing. Like the way that Michelle is able to tap into different layers of whatever location we're at. She has no idea where we're at. We don't even tell her we're really together. Like the first episode we filmed, or one of the first episodes we filmed of Travel the Dead, Katrina, you were texting Michelle and she's like, I think someone's with you. She looks like Heather, but she had no idea. But the fact that, she's in a different state, has no idea where we're at, and she can tell us she can describe like an antique bedpost we're standing in front of or a specific doorway we're going through. Like, it's insane. Like, I literally have no words, and I don't think anyone can really understand her brain. It's incredible.
Katrina, how have you, because I know you've used Michelle in different projects. How do you from time to time, how do you feel about Michelle and how she's grown? You've seen her grown from year to year, and you keep coming back to her, obviously, because she's that good. But what is it about her that continues to astound you?
So Michelle, I think what's really interesting about her is her remote readings are more accurate and detailed than when she's in person. And she is someone who I'm sure people have seen on like the other shows we've been on. She prefers to be blindfolded because it helps her tune in better. And she is way more accurate when she is blindfolded. And so then it's interesting that remotely she's more accurate too. The Selma Mansion episodes, she literally sketched out the house we were in. She made she sketched out the house and she told us the color of it and the color of the roof and the neighborhood it was surrounded by. And what's interesting about Michelle is like, we could literally be anywhere. And normally we're at like a scary prison or, an old asylum, an abandoned building. And so when like Heather was talking about the antique bedpost, we were at an old bed and breakfast. Like, again, we could have been anywhere. And so for her to match those details the way she does is really astounding. And I think my personal belief, this is just my humble opinion, I do think ESP in the next 100 years will have more science behind it. There is something to it, and it has been studied by legit scientists and organizations. And so I do think there's something to it. And Michelle, what's interesting about her is she is the first person to tell you she doesn't understand how she does what she does. She just does it. And I think the amount of time she's been so accurate is just, I don't know. Like for me, it's just woken up something like a lot of curiosity of how does she do this? How do we document what this woman is able to do? And we've been really lucky that we have access to many great psychics who have proven their abilities time and time again. And I think it's just, again, we're working in this field that really doesn't have answers. And so we use these psychics as an extra tool to see, is there anything that, we can document? Is how, can their reading be used objectively? And how do we do that? And what matches up with what? And, so it's all just, it's all fringe for sure. But I think when you get as many hits as you do with someone like Michelle, it's just like, I don't know, maybe it becomes a little addicting. Like, what is she going to pick up on this time?
Is the temptation there to use her maybe a little bit too much because she is that talented? Is there a little bit of a temptation to want to go a little too far and maybe lean on her a little bit too much?
As far as like our conclusions, you mean?
Yeah. As far as even, I don't know if you shoot out a sequence, if you're, in most, when we see the program, I know you tend to front load her on the front of the program. I know you do your due diligence when it comes to historical research, and you're both very good at doing that as well. But to come to a conclusion before you actually investigate, but to lean on what it is that she's hitting on, is it easy for you to say, you know what, she's so good, how can she not be not right? Is it easy for you to just say, well, because Michelle said this, it's got to be right?
No, I think Heather and our goal is always to remain as objective as we can. Mm-hmm. So even though Michelle has been so accurate so many times, I don't know that we've ever worked with a single psychic who has never gotten it wrong or maybe things aren't adding up and, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for what they're saying. So I just think it's, our goal is to be as objective as possible. And even though we know Michelle clearly has a gift, we still have to, kind of strip that down and say, okay, what did she say? And does anything match up that we know of right now? And can we use any of that in our investigation? I
find it interesting in the shows that are out there now. on YouTube, and there's quite a few. There's very few that are depending on psychics or going back to the older ways of using a good trance medium, much like Hans Holzer or even Lorraine herself was a medium and depended on her abilities. Do you think that that's a mistake, that we're still stuck in that scientific, skeptical mind frame of we're only going to look at our devices and come to a guess or whatever it is we can pull from analytical devices and leave it at that?
I think we both have thoughts on this one.
Sure. What do you think, Heather?
There's just so many different ways to do things, and there's so many experiments to be conducted because we don't really have like there's not one clear-cut way to do these things. So, I mean, there's just a million things we could do to try to figure out what it is we're dealing with.
And I think this goes back into when you were asking about after the dead, is that, and again, I go back to Heather's quote because it's so perfect of like, we're trying to put parameters on something that doesn't have parameters. So then how do you investigate that? It's not like, cold cases where there's like an exact science of, okay, if you find the body, what does that mean? And how long has this been here? And okay, now we got to get all the clues together and try to figure out who did it. That's not a paranormal investigation is not a hard science. We don't even know what a ghost is or how it works or, if it's even real or if it is what we think it is. We have no idea. So it's just, you have to try a bunch of different things to see, okay, can we document any of these experiences objectively? And if we can, what does that mean? How do we look at that? How do we back that up? Does that, and we work a lot with Zach Hano too, who's an electrical engineer. Mm-hmm. And, that's to try to see, can we start building equipment that can detect this activity or can maybe tell us in advance, hey, it's going to happen here at this time or whatever. But I think, again, it's all fringe. So it's like even the pieces of equipment, there's not a piece of equipment that's like, oh, there's a ghost here. They're measuring different pieces of the environment. So like when a REM pod goes off, it's because the electromagnetic field around it was broken, but there's so many things that can do that. So I just, like Heather said, it's like there's so many ways to do these investigations and everybody has their own method and ways to do it. And I don't know, I guess it's sort of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what gets you a response.
Well, even Zach has shot holes in what some of the equipment does, mm-hmm. and is said it not even that's foolproof. So,
right,
it to me that I love the fact that he's come on and said that that you can't look at the equipment and take it as 100% proof.
Right,
there's something there.
Right, 100%. Because I think what we have found too with our channel, like Heather and I are not the very hyper type of a ghost hunters where, we're like screaming at everything or, we get like really rattled easily. And there's nothing wrong with people if that's how they investigate, but I think what we have found with the people that have flocked to our channel is, they're looking for, I think maybe they're trying to seek out investigators that are trying to get to the bottom of it. It's not necessarily just thrill seeking. Yeah. It's like a real curiosity of what actually is happening here. Can we figure it out? I have no idea. I don't have those answers. I don't know that I ever will. But hey, I guess we're going to die trying.
Well, don't say that. I mean, that's horrible.
Oh yeah. I should knock on wood for that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll spend the rest of our lives trying, which will be a very long time.
There you go. That'll be a very long time. Very true. Very true. I tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the last 3 episodes that have been posted, and we'll actually you had a good friend of ours on one of them, and I want to ask a little bit about his investigating method. We got to see it on video, but there's got to be some behind the scenes stuff that we can talk about. I know that much. Because I know for a fact I've investigated with him over the years, so I have a few questions about him as well. Of course, we're talking about Aaron Sagers, so we'll talk about Aaron when we come back. And I'm curious too because I've also investigated OSR and just the challenges were interesting. The whole challenge segment, and I've never got to do the individual challenges, but I know the both of you have done them multiple times now. So I want to get your individual opinions as to. I've done the Waverly challenge, but I've never done the OSO challenges. So I know what I feel when I get in those rooms. I want to get the idea of how you, and think about this during the break, how you fight down anxiety and fear. And I know you kind of mentioned this in the video, Katrina, but how you overcome a little bit of fear and anxiety and get through when you know you've got 15, 20, 30 minutes, how you struggle through it, how you kind of fight it down, and how you get through the last 2 minutes when you know you've got 2 minutes left, because that tends to be the last couple of minutes that are the toughest. So when we come back, more about Travel the Dead with my guests from Travel the Dead, Heather, Taddy, and Katrina Weidman. We'll talk about OSR, we'll talk about Aaron Segers, and we'll talk about how you beat down fear and anxiety, especially when you've got just 2 minutes left on the clock during a challenge. We'll have more with both my guests, Heather, Taddy, and Katrina Weidman, right after this on the Best in Paranormal Podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the Best in Paranormal Podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guests today, Katrina Weidman and Heather Taddy. Travel the Dead is the subject today. Wonderful show on YouTube. We'll have the link in the description of this program so you can check out the episodes. You can also check out After the Dead as well, and everything that is on the channel. Ladies, let's talk about the episodes. I tell you, every time I watch one of these episodes, I am riveted. I am absolutely riveted. The two of you do an outstanding job with every single episode. Everything from the principal photography to the people you bring on board to, I mean, just the story in general and the detail, every minute detail that goes into the program. Again, I applaud both of you for what the effort that's put into each program. I want to talk a little bit about a good friend of ours, first of all. We might as well bust him out right now and get it over with. And I say that lovingly. Aaron Segers, who is in himself not only highly intelligent, but is highly creative, which I applaud you for bringing him on board for the Ohio State Reformatory episode. Because I don't think anyone's ever thought to bring him on board and see what he has to offer, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron he's done a lot of hosting and commentary. So I think when people, if they know him from TV, that's probably how they've seen him work. And he has a journalist background. But I mean, we know him as an investigator and as somebody who's gone to these places. So when we were all at OSR, it was a thing of, we should really have somebody join us because this place is massive. And Aaron was top of our list.
I investigated it. Listen to me doubling up my words here. Investigated it with him way back in, I think the first time was 2007 or 2008. It was a long time ago at the Stanley Hotel. And when he was a young investigator, and I was amazed at how he thought on the fly of things. He saw how the established people did it. And then he would say, well, how about this? And even though you could tell he was nervous about things, he thought well under pressure, right? And he had this inner calm and demeanor, even though maybe he wasn't calm himself, which I thought was quite interesting. How you can have two sides to yourself. You might be a little unnerved, but at the same time, you're going, you know what? I'm still going to maintain my cool, and I'm going to maintain my creative self. And I think that's because Aaron's always worked incredibly well under an extreme amount of pressure. Aaron's maintained and achieved this high level of success for himself in his field, but he's always had this high amount of pressure on him to do so. So he's had to have been nervous. He's had to have been, had all these emotions going on in this kettle inside his gut. But at the same time, he's had to outperform everybody. So I think that comes in really well when it comes to investigating. And by watching what he did with the two of you, I could tell he was really nervous, first of all, very uncomfortable. But at the same time, when you threw something at him, it was like, well, that's part of the job. Let's go do it. Which I thought was pretty admirable. I want to get your impressions as to what you thought when you would throw something at him. Am I reading the room right when I say that?
Yeah, I feel like he just flowed with like our investigation style. Like they're very much similar in a way. In the way you were saying, Tim, how he stays like very calm and collected. And I remember a year prior to us filming the OSR episode, I investigated with him for the first time at the show club. And I liked his technique. I like how just chill and go with the flow he was. But I think at OSR, we were really all on edge. And I don't even know why, but it was just, that night was so creepy.
I know.
We all had the same feelings in the West Hall. It was just, I don't know. We all were kind of having the same exact feelings while we were there.
I know that
OSR is a weird place.
It is a weird place. And
a very weird place.
I know from the time you got the footage of him seeing what he thought were crawlers on the wall, I think that was the first thing that unnerved him. I mean, I think that's what kind of threw him off to begin with. And then it kind of went from there. And I know that, believe me, Aaron's no chicken. Let's just throw that out there right away. And it's not that he was a nervous Nelly throughout the entire thing. He wasn't. It was just, you could tell he was unnerved the entire time. And it's not a state I'm used to seeing him in. Normally he's as cool as the other side of the pillow, right? Almost cyborgish is a way of putting it, right? But to see him in that state where he's, I mean, even when you're drawing straws, he looked like he didn't want to touch the straw, right? I mean, that to me, I got to admit to the two of you, I was laughing through the episode. Which, and if you didn't know him, you wouldn't be laughing. But if you know him, I mean, it was pretty darn funny.
I was laughing cutting up the straws because they literally had no idea I was doing this. And I was just like, this is going to be so much fun and also suck at the same time.
Yeah. Those challenges are no joke either. I mean, for someone who thinks, it's 15, 20 minutes in the dark, what is that? When things are happening, that's a lot.
It's a lot of time. And it's also, so my challenge was the second hardest. I actually think that's kind of the easiest. And my challenge was walking on the third tier of the East Cell Block, which is like notoriously haunted. And like, bad things have happened there historically. Heather had the hardest challenge, which was sitting in the West Attic by herself, like all the way in the back. And the West Attic is probably the scariest place you can be. But Aaron had the quote unquote easiest challenge, which I actually think is really hard because there's bats flying around. You're in a room with no windows, only one door. There's only one way in and out of this room. And also for the last 4 years, people have been getting scratched in there.
Oh, just no.
Randomly. And, Greg, who runs all the paranormal stuff there, has pictures to back this up. So weird things have been happening in that room. I was hoping I didn't get his challenge. I was like, please don't let me pick that straw.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Heather, when the straws came out, which one were you secretly hoping for?
Well, I actually didn't want to get Katrina's challenge because something about walking down that long corridor and walking past the open cells, I'm not into that at all. And the height that you're at, I was really hoping that I didn't get that one. I'm happy with the challenge I got because it was really scary and I don't know. I was really secluded from everybody. We actually all were in a way, but yeah, I mean, I'm proud of myself for doing it because, I mean, Greg was like, I wouldn't even do that, and he's there like every day. So.
And he's also like a retired cop.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Dude has seen some shit,
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's been in some of the most dangerous situations ever. And if he tells you he wouldn't do it, I mean, that tells you your level of bravery. That's for sure.
Yeah. I just kind of went into it thinking like, okay, nothing's going to happen to me. Let's just do this. And it just brought me back to like, that's why I got into this in the first place, was to put myself in these types of situations so that I could see things, because I want to see things. So I just kind of go in with that mindset. And, there were times I was creeped out, but I actually didn't pay attention to the time. And that's one thing with challenges like this. Don't pay attention to the time, because that's only going to make it go slower. But I actually was up there an extra 15 minutes because I wasn't wasn't paying attention at the time. So
seriously?
Yeah. And Heather's always prepared, which means she's also punctual. Yeah. And so Heather didn't come back. And again, I've known her for 20 years and I'm like, that's very un-Heather-like. Yeah. So then I started to get worried because, we are in a big, scary building and we get hurt in these places. Yeah. I sprained my ankles many times in these places. And again, we're a small crew. So if something happens to somebody, we won't necessarily know right away. But luckily Heather was okay.
Oh, now have either of you done that Waverly challenge where you walk down the dark hallway?
Oh, on the 4th floor or the 3rd floor?
Yeah, I think it's 4th or 3rd. Yeah. Where you see the shadows come out of the cells.
I've never seen the shadows come out of the cells.
No.
I think we saw things out of the corner of our eye, but never straight on. So it's a thing of I could probably explain it away. But yeah, I have walked down that hallway.
Now we had someone actually had a shadow person go right through them doing that, run through them. I did it, and I had shadow people running away from me. So for me, it was a nice stroll in the dark. It was no big deal. But for others, it was incredibly frightening, because they would see the shadows ducking like this and poking their heads out of the cells. I would see them poke out of the cells and then run back in. And then I would see some run across from cell to cell. And it's unnerving. But if I remember right, at OSR, I sat in solitary confinement, that little solitary confinement cell. I sat in there for 10 minutes and I almost took a nap, and nothing was happening at that point. But those are the only two things I really took as far as time challenges when I didn't do any of the challenges that any of you did. But I do have to ask this. Now, obviously, Heather, you weren't keeping track of time very well, so I think I got to disqualify you from this one, at least for this particular. But you've done other time challenges, and that's this. If you are keeping track of time, because I've watched other programs where obviously they're in secluded areas or taking challenges, and they're screaming, crying, wanting to run and yell for mom or whatever it is they're doing. I'm not going to mention the shows, but they're doing something a little more dramatic. What do you do when you know you have a certain amount of time that you have to be in there, and you feel that anxiety rising, you feel that fear rising, and you say, you know what, it's not cool. I got to be somewhat professional. I know that, as Heather eloquently put it, I came here to see something. If I'm going to show up to Disney, Mickey's going to show up, right? So I can't exactly scream at Mickey and run.
You
could, but it wouldn't be. It would defeat the purpose, right? So, what is it that you individually do to suppress those feelings and stick it out? I guess would be the best question here. So I'll go to Heather first. Heather, what do you do to suppress the feeling, stick it out for the amount of time?
I mean, I think for me, especially being in the attic, I feel like I was so focused on what was happening around me and there were so many sounds. So in that specific instance, I was trying to pinpoint what the sounds were, find the natural explanations. When I was doing that, I kept hearing like footsteps, like really loud, clear footsteps shuffling on the cement floor from the entrance. So it was easy to stay sidetracked when I was up in the attic, but I just think in general with any location, just don't think of the time and just try to put your focus elsewhere, and just try to think like, why are these things happening? What is causing them? I don't know. My mind just could go down, I'm always thinking, my mind never stops. So I just try to not pay attention to the time.
Do you ever think happy thoughts at any point? I mean, seriously, I know it sounds like a callous question, but do you ever go to another place? Or are you always focused on the stuff going on around you and trying to be analytical and thinking, okay, maybe those footsteps are a residual haunting, not an active haunting? Or are you trying to dissect what it is that's going on around you?
I mean, I think I always just have the mindset of like, in reality, nothing is going to hurt me in this room. You know what I mean? Unless a bat flies into my face and then I get rabies. But just in general, I have that thought, like nothing's going to hurt me. I'm like protected. Okay.
Katrina, you got 2 minutes on the clock. You're sitting there and you've got to suppress the feeling and stick it out.
Which sounds like a paranormal version of the bend and snap, I have to say. So
it does.
You might need a little dance for this. But to suppress and stick it out, I'm going to tell you a story.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Picture it.
Okay.
Pennsylvania, 2021. For my Golden Girls fans, hopefully out there, they understand this. But I was working with Barb Morrison on my music. Barb Morrison produced 5 of my singles. And Barb is like really into, well, I don't know if they're really into the paranormal, but they're like fascinated by a lot of it. And so like when Barb and I would talk, they would ask me questions about it. And so I was in their mentorship program and they asked me one time, they said, how do you do it? How do you go into those buildings and like essentially like stick it out? How do you do that? Because like I wouldn't be able to do it. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want fear. Like, I don't want to miss out on an opportunity because of fear. So I just do it. And they were like, what a great analogy for life. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm not living my life that way. It's like only the paranormal that I'm doing this. But it had me thinking about like, oh, why am I doing this? How am I doing that? And it really is. That's one of the things that runs through my head is, we're programmed to be fearful of the unknown for sure. And, I'm sure that has kept us alive in many instances. But when we're talking about ghosts specifically, there's also an element of our fear that comes from things we've been told about ghosts and the supernatural. So whether that's from movies or books or religion or cultural beliefs, there's always this thing of you're supposed to be scared of it. And here's the thing, maybe we are, I don't know. But in my head, I'm like, what if we're not supposed to be scared of this? Like, we don't even know what this stuff is. So what if 100 years from now, somebody has this all figured out and they're kind of like, oh, isn't that funny that they thought this is what this experience was and it's actually this? And, so I kind of go into like a more objective mind space of, you know what, you don't actually know what this is. And part of your job is to see if you can document the experiences that people are having, see if you can experience them yourself. And so I'm not going to be able to do that if I can't put myself in those situations. And it is scary. We do get scared. I don't think we ever try to hide that. We absolutely do get scared. But, and it's also okay to be scared. It's okay to run out of a room if like if you feel like you shouldn't be there. But yeah, you do have to get over that fear though, if you want to be in those situations and try to document this stuff, you do have to go to that very objective place. And I think also like just grounding yourself, like, so like Heather was saying, like, you know, where it's like, okay, I'm okay. Like, this is okay. I can do this. And, you know, and then you just kind of get through it.
You know, you bring up an interesting point there, in that I'm going to take it one step further, and that's this. You can get overexposed to something that you may either be afraid of, that you may be enjoying too much, and you get jaded to it, right? Do you, either of you, ever see a day where you've done the investigation after investigation after investigation, and it stops giving you a rise, not even being fearful, or not even getting adrenaline from it, where you just walk in and you're numb? I mean, are we there? We might be there already. Are we?
I mean, I think there's certain locations where maybe I've been to them a bunch and I'm like, this place, I don't think this place is haunted. I don't think the history's right. I think, you know, this is all created. But like maybe locations like that where I'm just kind of like sick of them in a way. But I don't know. I feel like anytime, because you just never know what's going to happen. And that keeps me invested in it. And the thrill, like when something does happen, I don't think that rush for me will ever go away.
I think it's too like, wow, where did my train of thought go? Sorry about this. I had it. It might be gone.
That's all right.
What was,
oh,
do we get numb? This is what I was going to say. I was going to say, I almost wonder though, maybe not numb, maybe not necessarily jaded, but to get to that point where you're desensitized to maybe the, I don't know, like the, you know, kind of like the jumps that you might have. Right. I think maybe that's a good place to work from as an investigator, because as investigators, we always want to stay objective as we possibly can. And it's hard to do that, I think, when you do have that heightened sense of, you know, I got to look everywhere. You know, you always have to be grounding yourself and like reminding yourself, you know, that could be a building noise, that could be an animal. Okay, if this is supernatural and not explainable, what is that? How do we document it? Is it, are we being objective enough? So I do wonder if that's a better space to start the work from, like, you know, to get down to that base level.
In both your opinion, how many years does it take you to start to get the jump scares weared out of you? I don't have proper English for that, but to get to the point where you can start to calm down a little bit and say to yourself, no, you know what? I recognize that sound. That's a raccoon, you know, playing around, or I recognize that's this. And you can start to kind of separate yourself from your emotions and move forward and start to do the job with a little bit of objectivity.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be different for everybody. It's like how many looks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop thing, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's going to have a different speed at which they go.
Heather, do you think there's an amount of time where you can start to separate yourself from your emotions a little bit and start to do it a little bit objective?
I don't know that I can answer that. I don't know if there is an answer to that, because again, I think it's different for everybody. I think for myself, I'd probably say like, I don't know, maybe 5 years in, okay. You could sense a change towards like, yeah, that's just whatever. It doesn't scare me anymore in a way.
I think for me, it was Paranormal Lockdown did it for me. Yeah. Because we spent so much time in these locations. We lived in those locations for 3 days. And you just have to, it's like you have to bring yourself down to that base level to be able to actually like fall asleep in one of those places. You have to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have to abandon all those emotions.
Does that necessarily make for good network TV, though? That's the question.
Well, you know, I guess that depends on who you ask. But for me, that was like I think that was the training ground to drop that stuff. But also, I think on Paranormal State, we had to do that too, because these were real people. They weren't, you know, these were people going I mean, whether it was explainable or not, they believed they were going through a haunting, and they were, having a lot of issues because of it. So I think when we worked on that show, it was never about our emotions. It was always about how do we help that family. So even then we had to kind of drop what we were feeling.
Right.
And just focus on, how do we do this investigation?
Very true. We're getting to the end of our time together, but I do want to ask the both of you this. Now, a lot of Travel the Dead is based on where you're both headed in life and in general. Where do you see yourselves maybe in the next few episodes, in the next year or so, taking the show?
Well, the next few episodes, I guess we can announce it here because it's going to come up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we might as well. This is the best place to do it.
Yeah. We were one of I actually believe we were the second to last or third to last group allowed to go into Bobby Mackey's and investigate before it was torn down. So that episode is coming out in a couple weeks. We also bring on guest investigator Dustin Perry into an upcoming episode. And that investigation is fucking crazy. Like I don't even know if I've ever been to a place where we had this much objective stuff happening to us. Really? So voices captured multiple times, things we heard with our own ears, then captured on multiple devices, seeing things, multiple people seeing things with the naked eye, other things happening that I don't want to give away because then it gives away the location. But that was probably, I don't know how to describe that place. It was just, it was off the hook. Off the hook.
Definitely not what I expected.
Nope.
Wow.
So we have a couple more episodes of Travel the Dead coming, and then we'll have After the Dead coming this year as well for the second season. And that's our recap show. And we're gearing up to shoot that probably the next month. And then we're back on the road doing new investigations. And we have a case in Tasmania that we've been asked to investigate, which we would really love to go to. We're expanding out. So we've had some families reach out to us asking us to come to their house. And we're all self-funded. So that's the other thing. Like, as far as like how people can help us, the likes, the subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting on our videos, they all help us grow. And so we can get to places like the Tasmania case that we really want to go to. This is a family, they boarded up their house. They're not even in there anymore because of everything that was going on.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah. So definitely we'll be expanding the channel, and also new episodes coming and new fun things coming to YouTube.
That sounds amazing. Again, folks, I encourage you, like Katrina said, like and subscribe. Get in there, watch these episodes that are out there now, and continue to follow. It sounds like you got some amazing episodes. I spent a little bit of time with Dustin this past weekend, and boy, what a quality human being. Both he and I are involved with Potographs for Pooches, and we do work with them. And again, an amazing human being. I can't wait to watch that episode as well. So it sounds like you two, you might have a quality program going on and have some good stuff coming up here. So I'm excited. I'm excited for both of you, and have been for quite some time. That you landed feet up from everything that's been going on, and I wish you continued success, both of you. And it's really cool to see both of you just knocking it out of the park from episode to episode. It's so cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think it's been really rewarding for us too, because it's just, it's weird. Heather and I always said, like, since Paranormal State, we just want to work together. We just want to work together. And for some reason, we were waiting for somebody to give us permission to do it. It was just like an odd thing. And then we're like, this is dumb. We should just do this. And so, I don't know, Travel the Dead happened with COVID, but it's been really rewarding for all of us. And we're really, really thankful. We just hit 100,000 subscribers. So we're very, very thankful to our subscribers and our fans who keep supporting what we do. And, we always say it's just real investigations by real investigators. So if you're looking to go down the rabbit hole, basically we'll be your white rabbit.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you both, Heather, Taddy, Katrina Weidman, for spending the time with me tonight and filling us in on the latest with Travel the Dead. Again, folks, we have a link in the description of this program. Like and subscribe, get in there, watch the episodes. Not only follow them, but continue to support Travel the Dead. There's good programming out there that's not on network TV. Network TV really doesn't have a lot to offer anymore. It's all being done on the internet. So it's good programming that it's at your fingertips and at your leisure. So go out there and follow Travel the Dead and After the Dead. It's really good stuff. Folks, that's going to do it for tonight. A reminder that we've got Darkness Radio on the Apple app. If you haven't got the latest update, go ahead, go to the app, either into the Apple Store if you offloaded it for some reason from your Apple device, or update it, one or the other, and get your podcast there if for one reason or another you're not subscribing through other means such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other places we're at. Second, check out the store at darknessradioshow.com. Third, I'm trying to think, there's a third here. Oh yeah, go out and be a good person this weekend. Lots of snow happening throughout the Midwest and other places this week. Although it's the last of the snow, it's supposed to be warming up. There's still people out there that are infirm and disabled that need your help, whether it be with shopping or other things that they need help with. Be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. Go out and help somebody this weekend. Just a message from your friends here at Darkness Radio. For Mally Fox, for Jessica Freeberg, for Beer City Bruiser, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I want to thank my guests once again, Katrina Weidman and Heather Taddy. We'll see you next week for more in the best in paranormal podcasting. This has been Darkness Radio.